For those of you who want to know anything about the history of hip-hop and the prehistory of hip-hop in Los Angeles and on the West Coast, that is your one-stop guide to get you going. Brian is also an accomplished and celebrated photographer and visual artist who is finishing up his first full career spanning photo collection soon, which we're very excited about. Brian, because you've done a lot of work following hip-hop, kind of following the international trails of hip-hop, let's say, I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about, back to that kind of historical question and back to this idea of connecting dots across genres, across styles. Is, one of the things when you peel back the layers about the history of the production of records is you do get that trail of unexpected sources and unexpected historical linkages. You've done work in Colombia and Brazil, lots of other places. Can you talk a little bit about the kind of role of internationalism in making this?
I mean, I'm also Irish, which I guess is international too.
Yes, right? It's true. It's true.
Well, I mean, the trail for me is funny because I remember listening to Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock in Ireland in like 1988 or 89, and I had never heard Think by Lynn Collins, and I just assumed that was Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock making that music. And I had no idea about sampling. And I really had no idea about funk, soul, jazz. Irish radio at that time was, there was one national station, and you'd be lucky to hear like some rock and roll maybe. I used to listen to Radio Luxembourg. I used to bring the radio in and put it under my pillow, and you could hear like the British Top 40. But I lived on the west of Ireland. We didn't even get the BBC. So I really, it's through hip-hop. It's through peeling back the layers that I know about John Coltrane, or I know about George Clinton, or Sun Ra, or Madlib, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, or Lee Scratch Perry, for that matter. But to expand it out a little bit, what I also know a little bit about is that people have been peeling the labels off records in Jamaica since the Second World War, and people have been peeling the labels off records in Colombia since at least the 50s, if not longer, peeling the labels off 78s. You know what I'm saying? So the way I was trying to think about it, I was like, what is Josh talking about hip-hop as methodology? What am I going to be asked in this? After I've eaten these pears, what's required?
Priorities, right?
Yeah, right. What's going to be required? And in certain respect, I feel like that, the thing for me is that the technology somehow was already in place, and what hip-hop is, and that moment, and the way that Jay described it so beautifully, that sort of innocent moment. I've often thought of it also as that moment when a lot of people that I love and admire got struck by the same lightning. Because very often, if you've met people who grew up in New York in the 70s and early 80s, they speak with the kind of passion about this culture that feels like they were. I used to say that about Ramel Z. I was like, man, he got struck by the lightning bad. I mean, he had the spirit was in him, But the thing was, for me, that is a kind of naming involved. And I mean a naming from below. I don't mean some journalist goes to the Bronx and decides to call this thing hip-hop. I mean, it's a kind of coming together of a certain set of technologies that existed both within this country and outside this country, in that in those communities. And that's where all this wonderful information and methodology, right down to, I mean, Mona Lisa said it very nicely. I don't DJ, I play records. But I always have that same, I always carry that same sort of pedagogic or educational aspect into it when I do it. I want you to know that this is where it came from, that thing that you hear on the radio or that you're listening to in your car came from this. And there's a kind of ancestor worship aspect to this thing, which is really important. And